Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next edition of Ami Sites. I'm Ami Kassar, your host. Unfortunately, my co-host Lynn Ozer, aka SBA Queen, cannot be with us today, but we have an incredible guest. LaVonna Roth, aka the Shine Queen, is with us, and I'm so excited about what she does, her work, her methodology, her emphasis on culture, and helping people maximize their impact. And she's also a proud member of our EO Grit community and an active participant in it, and part of the EOA community in the Tampa St. Pete area. LaVonna, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ami. I'm thrilled to be here because I actually knew about you before EO because I get your newsletter and it is incredible.
Oh, thanks. I'm honored.
Yes.
LaVonna, tell me what makes you tick.
Oh, where do we start? No, I'm going to say what makes me tick is going to be a lot of it's kind of an off the wall answer when we're talking, business and such, but it's nature. It's being out in nature and just having that moment to have that space to refresh, to think through things or not think through things. So that is one aspect, just being in nature for that moment. But it's also when I get to see the impact of what happens with people. So when I created Shine, I never thought it would be to the level it is, but the impact and the stories that I get just it warms my heart. So for people to believe in themselves when they don't believe in themselves, that lights me on fire. Like, let's do it.
Tell me, what is Shine?
So SHINE is an acronym that we use to guide in a bunch of different ways. Again, it was not intended for that, but the application has been incredible. It's built on a lot of brain sciences, psychology, wellness, emotional intelligence is embedded. And so S and SHINE is self. And what we really focus on are what are your strengths, gifts, skills, and talents. So we come from the lens of what are you actually good at doing? Instead of beating yourself over with what you're not good at doing or where your imperfections lie. And a lot of that, when you look at Gallup research, Gallup shows that a strength of yours will remain a strength, but your weaknesses will never get to the level of a strength. But we always work on the weaknesses. Not that we shouldn't, right? They can get better. But what if we focused our lens instead on what are we already bringing to the table and what do we do well? And then H and SHINE is heart. And it's really about passion because you can be really good at something, but you will get burnout and bored if you're missing the heart, the passion behind it. So I loved your question about what makes you tick because that falls right under H for heart. And so the key though to this is the S and the H need to come together because if you have a strength, for example, and you're missing a passion, it doesn't work. You will get bored, you will burn out. And if we flip the model where you have a passion for something, but you're not very good at it, well, that might be more of a hobby at that point. So you love it, but not good. I always think about my husband sings around the house and I wish it was a strength of mine. It's not. And I remember one time I started singing because he was singing. I jump in, I don't even know it. And he looked at me and he goes, LaVonna, it is not a duet. All right, so I get it, right? I'm not a good singer, so I understand that. So a dream of singing every night on the stage in Vegas with Mariah Carey, that's not going to happen. Like she doesn't want a terrible singer. So as we think about, businesses and entrepreneurship and leadership and things like that, it's important that you're sitting in that shine spot of having the S and the H. I is inspire because life throws the curveballs. So how do you stay inspired and how do you inspire others? So you're keeping that top of mind into the forefront. N and SHINE is navigate, meaning what are you going to do with everything that I was just talking about? It's your action, your story, your goals, your chapter. And what do you want to do with all that you have or what your team has or your company has or even your family has? And then E is exceptional because you are becoming the exceptional person, leader, colleague, family member, the exceptional person you're meant to be, not anybody else.
Awesome. So why don't we just take a step back and say, so you have this company, Shine. I want to learn how you started it and all that. What did you do before Shine?
I was a teacher.
Okay.
I taught for 10 years. I taught anywhere from second through eighth grade. And I got leadership certified and was getting ready to become an assistant principal. And right before I interviewed, I was told, hey, LaVonna, like you really should do sales for the state of Florida for a university. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. Like sales, no. I have zero interest in doing sales. And then they approached me again and somebody else told me, they said, if you in our district go into a leadership and you decide to ever step away, you will come back. If you just decide to come back, you will come back as a teacher. You will not come back as a leader. You will be blacklisted. And I thought, that is crazy. And so I jumped and did the sales, found out I loved it with the approach that I gave it and the passion behind it. And it wasn't the salesy where I felt icky. And now I absolutely love sales because I think of it more as the impact and the messaging behind it. And so I did that for a bit, quickly moved into regional manager for them and did business development, which now plays a part in what I do. Again, didn't have that lens back then. And then I worked for a company that I was laid off. They don't even exist anymore. So I went through what that feels like. And then I ended up working for a company that was highly toxic. They would scream at me, cuss me out, and then the next minute hug me and say, you're put in our life. We're so blessed to have you. And yeah, after 4 months of that, I was like, no, no, I deserve better than this. And this is not how you treat people. And that's when I jumped. So if I saw them today on me, I would thank them because they're the ones that actually got me to jump. But I realized if I could start my own company, I could treat people better and treat people right. And that's always been the goal, which is crazy enough to lead to what I do today.
So when did you start your company?
I started it back in 2008.
Okay. And how did you start and what happened? Tell us about the journey.
Yeah. So I actually started with how do I train teachers? So I had come across some science, like brain science workshops, and realized, okay, we never actually get an understanding in our courses throughout school, graduate school. We don't learn how the brain learns. And I heard all this and I thought, holy cow, this is why some things in my classroom worked or why some things didn't work. And all of that came to light for me. So I started training teachers on how does the brain learn and coming up with these strategies that I use in the classroom or twist with them based upon the research. What ended up happening is I had a publisher come to me and they said, we want to publish. Like, you've already got it. And I'm like, I have zero desire to write. Like, I will talk all day, I will teach all day, but I have no desire to write. Well, they stayed on me and they said, LaVonna, you already have it. You have the entire content. You just need to put it on paper. So I did. And so we have 8 books now. I have 8 books now based on how does the brain learn and strategies. And I was loving it, but I wasn't seeing the results we should have seen in schools with students. And when I dug deeper, I realized we had to put the brain into a state of learning. And through doing that, I created Shine for teachers to do as students. But again, there's always twists in life. I had teachers coming up to me, of ed members, SROs, school resource officers, so police officers. I had all different adults coming up and saying, you have no idea how badly I needed this. And I had to take a step back and I went, holy cow, this is a human thing. So if we have adults walking into a school building or an office building or wherever somebody works and they don't feel good about themselves and confident, that affects everybody in the organization. So I pulled back and with Shine, I took it to a different level. And ever since, it's just been so many applications. It's been where I've spoken at universities with healthcare clinicians. And they're like, you need to be in hospitals. Like this message needs to be in hospitals to variety of, I've done nonprofits and it's just been such a beautiful adventure. I was approached by 2 board members last week saying, could you come do like how to delegate, like work with delegation? And I had to pause for a second and think through the lens of Shine. And I said, yes, I absolutely could, because here's how, here's why. And they're like, okay, we're looking at bringing you as a speaker for next year. So, that's what I think is so cool is just the unplanned path and where something you create doesn't necessarily always align or stay on the path of what you thought it would.
So is your primary business today as a speaker, or do you do consulting, or do you coaching, or what is it?
Yeah. So about a year ago, 2 years ago, I pulled back and said, I'm gonna just solely focus on keynote speaking. And so that's primarily what I've been doing. But we have a companion that really helps. It's called Shine Leadership Jumpstart Companion. And it's just something that we can give to anyone. And it takes an activity through each letter of Shine. And that letter then it takes it where the leader can do it by themselves. They can do it with a team, or they can go like school-wide, staff-wide, company. It doesn't matter. It's designed that way. And I had a psychologist who said, LaVonna, are sitting on so many opportunities here. Like, I don't think you truly understand the value of what is in Shine. So she sat with me, pulled so much from me. And next week we'll have the next whole layer done. And I share that because that's going to be the next step, is to slide more back into consulting. So definitely kick it off with a keynote. Goal would be to do a half-day workshop and then maybe even something ongoing if, that's desired, but using the companion in order to do that.
Tell me, how did you build up? A lot of people thrive to do it, but struggle. How did you build up as a keynote speaker, and how's that going?
Okay, so if you asked me this even back in 2009, 2009, 2010, especially before that, I would have said, there's no way. Like, you ever think I'm going to be a keynote speaker, you have lost your mind. I had a very shy side to me. And so there's a difference between, I also can be more introverted. So introverted, we recharge alone, but shy means you have fear of being judged. And so I was petrified to get in front of adults, especially, and then audiences, and thinking, there's no way, like, you're going to pick me apart. And I already had trouble with my own confidence. And I started, like I said, living shine and applying shine to my own life, watching my daughter. And I thought the things that I had gone through. And so it's evolved over time. Again, not how I planned it by any means, but it's been quite the journey, quite the journey.
How many keynotes do you do a year?
That really depends on the year. I would say, let's see, I've already done 65 nights in a Marriott this year, so probably about that many keynotes so far this year. Um,
And how did you get popular at it? How did you build up as a keynote speaker? Do you have an agent? Do you like, how does it work?
no, I've played with the idea of an agent, but I hear great stories, but I hear mostly horror stories about it. So for me, it's word of mouth. Our team talks about three things. It's either word of mouth, referral, or repeat business. And that's vast majority of how people have found out. I am on social media, and we definitely do things on social media, have a website like, most do. But that's what I really rely on, is that a lot of times people are in the audience and then get approached or they reach out. And it's interesting. We've had people say, we have waited and wanted to bring you in for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and we now finally can because of whatever the scenarios were for them, they couldn't. So it's exciting to hear that. But yeah, it's been just pretty organic, but I'm always open to doing more.
Do you travel around the world? Do you do it locally or nationally, or where you?
Mostly US based. However, I have spoken in Beirut, Lebanon. That was my first overseas one. I have spoken in Switzerland, Spain twice. I've been to Ecuador to speak, and I have an upcoming one in Singapore. So
It's a long way. I hope they're flying you there on the front of the plane.
yeah, I know. If not, though, yeah, no, I think it will be. But if not, we may have to upgrade because yes, that's a long one. But my husband and I have never been to Asia, so we're going to elongate that trip and make sure that we hit some of the countries over there too.
So are you going to Thailand by any chance while you're there?
We're hoping. We're hoping. I talked to a friend who lived in Singapore for 5 years last week, and she's like, "Listen, you could hit Phuket, you could hit Bali, you could hit." And she started naming. She's like, "Japan's not that far." I was like, "Okay, I don't plan on being gone for months, which I would love to. That'd be incredible." But yeah, do you recommend Thailand?
We went to Singapore a couple years ago for EO's Global Leadership Conference, and
Yeah.
my wife and I went to Phuket for a few days beforehand, and we stayed at this hotel called the Slate in Phuket, and it was hands down, I think, the coolest hotel I've ever been to in my entire life.
Okay, that says a lot because I know you also travel a lot.
Quite a bit,
I
yes.
wrote that down.
The Slate.
A lot of, like I said, K-12 education teachers is definitely a part of it. Leaders is where we are more focused right now, more heavily focused on women in leadership. But again, I hesitate to say that because every time I do, then I have men who say, well, we needed this too. I'm like, I know. But women in leadership conferences is where I'm primarily focused. But it really is, I want to speak to groups who say, I know we can be better. I know we can do better. We want a framework or a lens to be able to do this so that we can learn that piece, but then it integrates easily into what you're already doing, your mission, your goals, like the challenges you're trying to overcome. Once you learn the lens of it, it's super simple to think through that way. So really open to those that want to create a human focused culture or be a human focused leader and say that I know that we can elevate each other, just not exactly sure how to do that. And this gives that framework. The other part I'll say a lot too is what I find Shine really makes a difference is on with those who have a lot of imposter syndrome. And I was recently asked in a podcast, they said, so LaVonna, like, how do you overcome imposter syndrome? And I'm like, I don't have it. I used to, but I don't anymore because I know it's truly living shine. Like I know what the things I'm good at doing, and I'm also okay with the things that I'm not good at doing because that is exactly what human and being human is. And so as we focus in on someone else bringing something to the table is not a reflection of me being like stupid or not good enough. It is about I have been given different gifts. I shine in a different way, just like they do. But when we come together, we're unstoppable in that way. And we actually adopted a firefly as a mascot. And so it's flicker the firefly. And we did that because there was research done by Professor Hugh Smith in Asia where he had seen a tree light up and it went away and he thought the tree had been struck by lightning. And the more that he watched, he learned, he saw it like happen again. And this time it was more trees. And he thought, this is so weird. Like lightning doesn't tend to strike in the same place twice, but I just saw it. Well, as he got closer, he realized they were full of fireflies. And what he learned in the research is that when fireflies light up individually on their own, they have a 3% chance of survival. That's it, like three. But when they synchronize their lights together, they have a 82% chance of survival. From a 3% to an 82 just by synchronizing their lights. And what I heard with that was that is us, right? We light up individually, we each have our own shine. But when we synchronize together, that is when we actually elevate at the highest level. We create that synchronicity together. And there's a lot of brain science and chemistry alignment with that too, which is just a bonus. And then the other part that I heard too is that when fireflies light up together, they can be seen for miles. And to me, that's a reflection of when we align and we synchronize together, we actually invite others to shine also. And so stepping into
Awesome.
that arena.
But you're doing great. You're keynote speaking. You got this business. You got this brand. You're in EOA. All these cool things happening. It sounds like you're moving to Colorado, which is also neat. But what's next? What's your vision board for the next couple of years?
So this whole companion that we're working on, my vision is to be out speaking more. We have a very big focus on giving back to community. And that has looked in a variety of different ways, but I would love to be able to do some speaking each year for nonprofits totally for free and have the opportunity to support them. And then also just I see the deeper work of just we need it so bad in this world. We do. One of the things that I said recently when I was in Minnesota, and it was unfortunately shortly after the school shooting, it was actually the day after the school shooting. One of the things that, came to mind for me is that when we think about adults, students, doesn't matter, what age, when we think about bullying or we think about suicides or we think about shootings that happen, that doesn't happen with people who feel good about themselves. And so when I think forward, I want this message out there to get people to have the confidence and belief in themselves so that we can reduce, if not totally eliminate, those kinds of things happening. That would be my magic wand right there.
Love it. Tell me a little bit about your EO journey and how it's helping you and all that. Hopefully it's helping you.
Yeah, should we talked about that before? It's incredible. It is incredible because it's given me a lot of opportunity to have outreach and connection to people that I likely would never have met. For example, I went to the EO women's event in Montreal and I've already connected with somebody in Colorado and found out she lives 5 minutes from where I'm going to be living.
Where are
I
you in Colorado?
Erie, we're moving to Erie. So yeah, between
Where is
Denver and Boulder. Yeah, yeah, so easy access to both of those, and then EOA, I've already outreached to them. They're like, "LaVonna, come on out. We're got a spot for you in EOA." So that's been really awesome, and then there was another woman I'd met at the EO Women's, and she lived in Minnesota, so when I was in Minnesota speaking, she met me close to the airport. We had a drink together and enjoyed some time and just talked about the challenges of business and the wonderful things of business, and that's what I feel like EO completely does. Like, I'm a huge fan. I wish so badly I'd found out this before, and I came across it by accident. I knew about EO, but I didn't know there was the EOA portion of it. And so once I found that out, I immediately reached out to the Tampa Bay area and joined. And it's just been to have a group that you can truly talk confidentially about the celebrations, and people love that. But also, this is what I'm actually going through. Like one of the questions we had this week was based around, how are you, like, what are the things that you don't want to say? And that opened up the doors. So it's phenomenal, the outreach. And then being in a WhatsApp group like the EO Grit that you're doing, Ami, I can't tell you the value of not only seeing what people have, the wisdom and the experience shares that they're giving, but those groups also allow you to say and to realize that life doesn't go great all the time. And you're not the only one sitting in the muck. You're not the only one.
It just doesn't go in a straight line.
I'd say it's constant roller coaster. Like you feel on top of the world and then bam, you're down and then suddenly it switches again.
Just for the benefit of the listeners, the EOAs, our accelerated program for folks with revenue between 250 and million, and then for most parts around the country and the world, EO membership starts at $1 million of revenue. So that's kind of how it works. You
Highly
want to tell
recommend.
me, you said you've 8 books. Which one is your favorite? If there is one that's your favorite.
Well, they're all kind of the same. So the first one is called Brain Powered Strategies to Engage All Learners. So all 8 are for teachers. I definitely have 2 books in the pocket that I just need to move forward with and do. Those will definitely be coming out. I get asked a lot if I have a book and told you need a book. I have a lot of unique life experiences and stories, anywhere from how I grew up to things that have happened to me. So, I know that people may have not have been through the same thing, but can connect that way. So that's the first book is the Brain Powered Strategies. The other 7, though, are brain powered lessons and they go by grade level. So of course, my first one has to be my favorite, right? Because it's the first one. You feel like you're giving birth. So I'll say that one.
So many of the listeners of this podcast are entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs. Is there any of your work that you think is particularly applicable to entrepreneurs?
Yes. What I've had to do is, and is really think about what are my strengths and what are my passions and delegate everything else as best I can. And I know it's really hard if you're a solopreneur at first because that's where I was. But I started out small. And an activity that I'll give you that I think really helped me was I think it was 7 days that I had a sheet of paper with me at almost all times. And I was jotting down everything that I had to do. And then I went in, and this actually I have to give my sister credit because she's the one that said, "Hey, I try this activity." I added another layer to it because of the H and shine. But what I did was I documented all the things that I was doing as an entrepreneur. I went back and I put the letter L for LaVonna beside all the ones that only I could do. No one else could do it, only me. But then I went back and I added in a heart for the passion part. Like, what do I actually enjoy doing? And that will shuffle and shift. And it's kind of the 80-20 rule, right? There's going to be 80% of what you do enjoy, 20% of what you don't. But what we did within the company is that I started bringing on people aligned with the things that I either could not stand to do, didn't know how to do, and just the freedom and relief and the support that they were like, man, I get to really add value here. And I'm like, yes, you do, because these are the things that I'm not good at doing or I don't want to do. And now it's to the level I have a team. And so what we do is we have conversations around where are we feeling with our strengths and our heart. So for example, I had a situation where emails that had to go out by a certain date were not in time, were not getting done until they were sent to me at like 11 p.m. at night and they're going out the next morning. So I said to that particular teammate, I said, hey, talk to me. What is going on here? Fast forward, discovered she hates writing the emails. So writing them was not a passion for her. She also doesn't feel it's a strength. So we opened this up to the team. There was a teammate who said, hey, I actually enjoy writing the emails. That teammate writes the emails. She sends them out. Everything is done way ahead of time.
So
But instead of like getting mad at her and pushing it, is having that S and that H conversation from Shine. So that's the biggest thing I say to entrepreneurs, like as much as you can, get those things. It's already a hard enough journey at times. Do yourself a favor by getting the things that you're not passionate about or good at off your plate as best you can.
I love it. LaVonna, where do people find you or your website or your books or all that stuff?
Yes. So igniteyourshine.com is the website. And then we're on social media as far as LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So primarily on LinkedIn and Instagram.
So I wish you the best of luck. Have a great trip to Singapore. Go to the Slate and Phuket. You won't regret it.
All right. All right. Add it to the
And
bucket list.
add it to the bucket list and keep gritting with us on the Grit channel. We love having you there. And thank you so much for being on the show.
I sure will. And Ami, truly, from the bottom of my heart and from so many, thank you for all that you do because you've been a gift to so many of us. So thank you.